They tell you it's never too late for a second chance. They sell you on the dream of lifelong learning, a quaint notion for retirees looking to fill their days. At 68, Eleanor Vance believed them. After 2 years of suffocating silence following her husband's death, she wasn't looking for a diploma. She was looking for a pulse. Enrolling in college alongside her granddaughter, Chloe, seemed like the perfect answer. A heartwarming story of intergenerational friendship and a bold refusal to fade away. What could possibly go wrong? That's the lie we tell ourselves, that the past is a closed book. But for Eleanor, returning to campus wasn't a new beginning. It was an excavation. The university she remembered from 50 years ago held more than just memories. It held a secret she'd spent a lifetime burying. Now, a history professor with eyes that know too much is turning his lectures into interrogations. A ghost from her past is leaving cryptic clues, and the wholesome grandmother-granddaughter college adventure has become a desperate race to solve a cold case before it destroys the one person she swore to protect. Eleanor came to find herself, but she's about to discover that the person she was is far more dangerous than the woman she is today. The silence in Arthur's study had become a living thing, thick with the scent of old books and dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. For 2 years, my world had shrunk to the size of this house, a quiet loop of tea and memories. Then I found it. A university brochure tucked inside one of his old philosophy texts. Its glossy image of bright-faced kids a brutal contrast to my own reflection. This wasn't just about education at any age. It was about refusing to let my last chapter be written in silence, a quiet rebellion against fading away. When I told Chloe, my granddaughter, she dropped her fork into her pasta. Her eyes wide with a mix of shock and something I hadn't seen in a while. Admiration. "Grandma, are you serious? We could be classmates." The idea was absurd, a perfect setup for a sitcom, yet the grandmother-granddaughter college experiment felt like a lifeline. Still, a knot of fear tightened in my stomach. This decision was a potential life transformation, but it could just as easily become my greatest humiliation, a foolish dream of a lonely old woman. Stepping onto campus was like entering another dimension, a whirlwind of shouted greetings, frantic texting, and the smell of cheap coffee. I was a relic, a living fossil navigating a sea of vibrant youth who saw me not as a person, but as a curiosity, someone's lost grandmother. Every condescending smile and averted gaze cemented my status as a non-traditional student. This wasn't the welcoming world of lifelong learning from the brochure. It was a tribal territory, and I was an invader just looking for a place to belong. I found my introduction to art history class, slipping into a seat at the back, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The professor strode in, a sharp-faced man with tired eyes, and began his introductory speech. He scanned the lecture hall, his gaze passing over the students until it landed on me. He stopped mid-sentence, his expression hardening into a look of cold, unnerving recognition. He walked slowly down the aisle, stopped right at my desk, and whispered, "Eleanor Vance, I never thought I'd see you again." Professor Davies's words hung in the air, a cold ghost from a past I had buried decades ago. The faces of the other students blurred as 100 questions screamed in my mind, but his icy stare dared me to ask a single one. Chloe, bless her heart, rushed to my side after class, her usual bubbly energy replaced by a concerned frown. "Grandma, what was that about? Who is that guy?" This grandmother-granddaughter college experience was already proving to be far more than just an academic exercise. It was an excavation of a life I thought was long over. We fell into an unlikely routine, a strange but wonderful rhythm. I'd help her decipher Chaucer. and she'd teach me how to navigate the university's labyrinthine online portal, a perfect example of intergenerational friendship blooming in the most unexpected soil. We became a campus curiosity. The odd pair huddled over lattes, bridging a 50-year gap with shared notes and laughter. This strange new life felt like a genuine life transformation, proving that the pursuit of knowledge and connection, this commitment to lifelong learning, truly had no age limit. But Davies was a shadow that followed me everywhere. In class, his questions were always aimed at me, layered with double meanings that only I could understand, turning the lecture hall into a silent courtroom. He'd reference obscure artists from a specific summer in 1968, his eyes fixed on mine, waiting for a flicker of recognition, a crack in my carefully constructed facade. He was the active antagonist I never anticipated, a gatekeeper not just to a degree, but to a past I desperately needed to remain hidden from my granddaughter. One rainy afternoon, I found a plain manila envelope slipped under my apartment door. There were no stamps, no return address, just my name typed neatly on the front. My hands trembled as I opened it, my breath catching in my throat. Inside was a single, faded, black and white photograph of a young woman who looked remarkably like me, standing arm in arm with a young, smiling Professor Davies. On the back, a single, terrifying question was scrawled in red ink. Does Chloe know who her grandfather really is? The photograph felt like it was burning a hole in my hand, the ghost of a smile on my younger self's face, a cruel mockery. This whole endeavor, this grand statement about lifelong learning, had morphed into a nightmare. I came back to school seeking knowledge, a future, but the past had ambushed me in a brightly lit lecture hall. I wasn't just a non-traditional student anymore. I was a woman with a 50-year-old secret that was about to detonate. And my granddaughter was standing at ground zero. This was more than a degree, it was a reckoning. At our favorite campus cafe, Chloe chattered excitedly about her plans after graduation, about us being seniors in college together next year. She saw this as a joyous adventure, this unique grandmother-granddaughter college bond. I nodded and smiled, the picture feeling like a lead weight in my purse. Every laugh felt like a lie, every shared look a betrayal. I was learning that real education isn't about history or art. It's about the crushing weight of your choices and the price others have to pay for them. I couldn't live like this, trapped between the man who held my past hostage and the girl who represented my future. The fear was a physical thing, a cold dread that settled deep in my bones, but letting it paralyze me wasn't an option. That evening, clutching the envelope, I walked to Davies's office in the deserted history building. The long, shadowy hallway felt like a final walk to the gallows. This wasn't just about education at any age. It was about confronting the ghosts you think you've outrun. The door creaked open before I could knock. He was sitting in the dark, a single desk lamp illuminating the cruel smirk on his face. "I've been waiting for you, Ellie," he said, his voice smooth as venom. He gestured to the chair opposite him, a stack of papers sitting neatly on his desk. "I don't want to hurt Chloe," he began, his tone deceptively calm. "All I need from you is a simple favor. I need you to access the university's archival records and destroy every file pertaining to a student from 1968, a student named Arthur Vance. The title of the article I once imagined writing, 'Breaking the Age Barrier,' now felt like a bitter joke. I wasn't just breaking a barrier, I was being blackmailed into smashing a hole through my own family's history. Walking back to my apartment under the amber campus lights, I felt the crushing isolation of being a non-traditional student with a problem no guidance counselor could ever solve. I had come here seeking a new life, but all I'd found was the locked door to an old one, and Davies had just handed me a crowbar instead of a key. The easy joy between Chloe and me began to curdle. She'd talk about a difficult assignment, and I'd see the dusty archives. She'd laugh about a funny professor, and I'd see Davies's cold smirk. Our intergenerational friendship was now a performance, and I was forgetting my lines. I was failing her, not as a classmate, but as the one person she was supposed to be able to trust. The dream of this shared grandmother-granddaughter college journey was dissolving into a lonely, silent vigil over a secret. I didn't fully understand myself. For 2 days I was paralyzed, caught between betraying my late husband's memory and destroying my granddaughter's future. But on the third night, a different kind of fire lit inside me. I wasn't the frightened girl from 1968 anymore. This quest for education at any age had taught me something vital: to question, to research, to find the primary source. I wouldn't be Davies's pawn. I would go to the archives not to destroy Arthur's file, but to learn what truth he was so desperate to burn. The university archivist, a kind woman who saw me as a shining example of lifelong learning, granted me access with a warm smile. The basement was cold and silent, smelling of decaying paper and secrets. I found the box for 1968 and my hands shook as I pulled out the file labeled Vance Arthur. But tucked inside, attached by a rusted paperclip, was another, much thinner file for a different student. My blood ran cold as I read the name, a young woman who had been my roommate that year, the one who had vanished without a word right after finals. My old life of quiet evenings and bingo nights felt like a distant, foreign country. Now my nights were spent under the fluorescent hum of the library, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a gnawing dread, poring over documents that reeked of 50-year-old ink and lies. This wasn't the life transformation I had signed up for. It was a descent into a past I didn't know existed. This so-called education at any age had turned me from a student into a spy in my own life story, and the final exam was survival. The stress was a corrosive acid eating away at my relationship with Chloe. She'd find me staring into space, my textbooks forgotten, and her questions grew sharper, tinged with a hurt I couldn't soothe. "Grandma, what's going on? You're a million miles away." Our grandmother-granddaughter college dream was fracturing under the weight of my secrets. I saw the suspicion in her eyes, the slow erosion of the beautiful intergenerational friendship we had built, and it was a pain sharper than any fear Davies could inspire. The missing roommate's file was a time bomb. It contained copies of her desperate letters to the dean, alleging that a rising star on the faculty was stealing her research. She never named him, but she detailed their meetings, their arguments, and her growing fear. Then the letters stopped. The final document was a formal withdrawal from the university, citing personal reasons, dated the day after she disappeared. There was no mention of Arthur, but a cold certainty began to form in my gut. Davies wasn't trying to protect my husband. He was trying to bury this girl for good. I made copies of everything, my hands shaking as I fed the documents into the machine. Leaving the library late that night, the campus felt menacing, every shadow a potential threat. My heart hammered against my ribs as I fumbled for my car keys in the near-empty parking lot. When I finally reached my old sedan, I stopped dead. The driver's side door was slightly ajar, and sitting perfectly in the center of the passenger seat was a single, fresh white rose, the same kind Arthur gave me on our first date, a secret I had never told a soul. The white rose on my car seat wasn't a threat. It was a ghost. Davies was a bully, but this felt different, more intimate, more sorrowful. It was a message from the past, a symbol only Arthur and I shared. The game had changed. I wasn't just being blackmailed by a corrupt professor. I was being haunted by a life I thought I knew. I had enrolled seeking simple education at any age, but I had stumbled into an unsolved mystery where my own husband was a central character. The other students just saw a lost old lady. They had no idea I was fighting for my life. The day of the midterm exam arrived, thick with a tension only I could feel. Chloe gave me a nervous thumbs up across the lecture hall. Our granddaughter college adventure now a minefield of unspoken fears. Davies handed out the blue books with a smug look, his eyes lingering on me, expecting me to be rattled, to fail. They all thought I was just visiting, a sweet grandma auditing a class for fun. They didn't know that my lifelong learning had been a lifetime of observation, of solving problems far more complex than identifying a Renaissance painter. I picked up my pen and began to write. The words flowing with a clarity born of pure adrenaline. I poured everything into that exam. Not just facts and dates, but analysis, connecting art to history, to rebellion, to the very secrets festering in that room. It wasn't about the grade anymore. It was a declaration of war. I was showing Davies, and myself, that I was not a fragile relic. I was a force, a non-traditional student who was about to give him a very traditional lesson in underestimation. This was my true life transformation. From victim to hunter, I was the first to finish. I walked my exam book down the aisle, every eye in the room on me. I placed it on Davies's desk and leaned in close, my voice a low whisper only he could hear. It's amazing how many talented young women from 1968 simply vanished. I watched the color drain from his face. I turned to walk away, a surge of triumph coursing through me, only to find Chloe standing there. Her face pale, her phone held out in a trembling hand. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice cracking. I was worried. I looked him up. "Why is your name in a police report from 1969, filed as a person of interest in the disappearance of your roommate?" Eleanor's journey began with a simple desire to trade silence for knowledge, to prove that a life transformation is possible at any age. But her quest for a diploma unearthed a 50-year-old mystery, forcing her to become the detective in her own life story. She walked onto campus a grieving widow and became a warrior, but victory came at a devastating cost. The truth, the final question, delivered by the person she loves most, proves that the hardest tests aren't found in blue books, but in the secrets we keep from our family. Now, we turn the final page over to you. What would you have done in Eleanor's place? Would you have destroyed the files to protect your family, or risked everything to uncover the truth, just as she did? Which single decision changed the entire course of this story? Her choice to enroll in college, or her refusal to be a victim? And as for Chloe, how does a granddaughter reconcile the loving grandmother she knows with the stranger in a 50-year-old police report? If this journey into the secrets of the past kept you on the edge of your seat, share this story with someone who loves a good mystery, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to follow new sagas and discover what happens next.